Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Angus Licensing Board on Thursday, the 12th of August, just before the commencement of the official agenda items. Some of you are probably aware already, but we are losing Lindsay Kimmett, one of our licensing lawyers. Lindsay's leaving and going to another job in another council because she's moved from the area. So on the board's behalf, and you'll all get a chance as usual, I would just like to thank you, Lindsay, for your support to me personally, and also the rest of the board members, and wish you well. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to make a comment? Councillor Durno?
Sorry to see you go, Lindsay. You've been such a great help to me in the last few years, and I wish you well in all you do, and hopefully we'll maybe see you some other time. Thank you.
Councillor Moore?
Yes, thank you, Convener. Yes, thank you, Lindsay. It's been a pleasure working with you. Your advice has always been well regarded. Even if we disagreed, I could understand where you were coming from, and I appreciated that. And I trust that you and your husband will be very happy where you're moving to.
Councillor Whiteside?
Thanks. I'll just keep it very brief, but thanks very much, Lindsay, and best of wishes in your new job and your new home.
Councillor Fairweather?
Exactly the same as what Councillor Whiteside said. Good luck, Lindsay.
Okay, members, I don't see any other hands. Thank you very much. We'll just go straight to the official agenda now. Mrs. Anderson, are there any apologies for absence, please?
There's no apologies, Convener.
Okay, thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? No. Okay. Members, agenda item number 3, minutes of the previous meetings. We're asked to approve as correct records the minutes of meeting of this board held on the 22nd of April and the 20th of May 2021. Do we agree these as correct records?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. The first item of business is agenda item number 4, premises licenses, request to vary under the Licensing Scotland Act 2005, and the first one is the Lunan House in Verkeeler Arbroath. Is there anyone here from that premises to speak to the application?
I think Convener Scott Bremner should be here.
Mr. Bremner, okay, you may speak to your application and then there may be questions from members afterwards. Thank you.
Hi there. Yeah, the recent application is an extension of the building and the final phase of our completion of restoring Lunan House back to a hotel. The main purpose is a public bar, which can also be used for functions. The total capacity now for the whole hotel would be 285. Our daily sort of operation would be maximum sort of 150, and the maximum capacity of 285 would be more for a function where we knew exact numbers that are coming. Okay.
That's fine, thank you very much. Members, any questions? Councillor Moore?
Yes, thank you. Can I just query, is the 285 including the external areas only?
Yes, it's internal and external. This is what the building warrant is for, toilet capacity for 285.
So can I ask how many people you would have internally?
Well, the internal section is for 285, but as I said, the 285 capacity would only be for a set function where we knew the exact numbers that are coming. On a normal working day, there's only capacity for 150 inside and outside in seated areas.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Councillor King? Councillor King, you're actually on mute. You're maybe having trouble taking your microphone off.
Pardon, beg your pardon.
That's okay. That's all right.
trying to comply with the rules and not be on speaker all the time. Right. I would like confirmation from building standards of the maximum numbers that their calculations indicate.
Okay, Mrs. Tom, have you managed to answer that for Councillor King? Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep. Sorry, it takes a while for my microphone to come off. Yeah, I think we assessed the whole building for the 285 for the sanitary facilities and for the internal floor area as well, and there was no problem.
Right, so I can confirm that in the case of something being organised for 285 people and a thunderstorm occurring, all 285 can get inside the building within your regulations.
That is correct.
And the toilet facilities are adequate for 285.
Yes.
Fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Anyone else? Questions? Comments? Councillor Durno?
I just want to say that's really good news, Scott, that you've got the hotel back open again. My 40th wedding anniversary this year, and I got married at Luna Bay Hotel, so maybe my husband will treat me to come out and see you. Okay, thank you.
Well, let's hope he's watching on YouTube, Councillor Durno, and you'll get the message now. Okay. Anyone else for comments? Okay, members, we have the application in front of us, the description of the variation. It's all within policy. Do we agree the core times? And do we agree items 2, the layout, 3, the operating plan, 4, the capacity, and the amendment to the name of the premises from Lunan House to Lunan House Hotel? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Your application has been granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and the
Can I
best
just
of luck.
check it's yeah. Can I just check it's okay to leave the meeting now?
Yes, that's it. Your application's been approved.
Yeah, great. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very much.
Okay, members, the next item shown on the premises license request to vary Sonny's Bar and Kitchen has been temporarily withdrawn. So we'll go to 4C, which is the Seven Sins, 2 Hume Street in Montrose. And if the applicant wants to speak to the application, just like the last one, and there may be questions from members. Thank you.
Hi there. We submitted an application for change of name and for a variation of hours, extending our licensing hours till 2 AM. I submitted a letter regarding my application because there's quite a lot to go through on it. So I put it all in writing for you before the meeting to hopefully help you understand why we applied for it and what we're looking for prior to the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions? No. Okay. Comments? No questions.
Convener?
None of the objectors present.
Yes, convener, just to let you know that there's Mr. and Mrs. Paul and Gemma Bertolotto.
Bertolotto,
I
yes.
think.
Okay, Mrs. Bertolotto, do you wish to address the board?
I don't. Mr. Bertolotto is actually my husband, so if he wants to join on at the same time to make sure we don't miss anything, I'm more than happy.
Yeah, I'm here as well. Thank you. Hi. But Gemma, you articulate, and then if possible, I'll come in. I'll intervene. Yeah.
No problem.
Interject. Yeah.
Yes, we're here today because we own, so Seven Sins is underneath our residential property. So we have 17 apartments above Seven Sins. And if the proposal is to go ahead with Thursday evening opening till 2 AM in the morning, we would like to object because we just feel a Thursday evening is unfair on the residents that live in the building. I think there's actually 20 different apartments in the building, 17 are ours. So I feel that on a Thursday night till 2 AM in the morning is unfair for residents living in the building for who have work in the morning, and it's antisocial hours for anybody having to listen to the music, but more importantly, it's the people outside on the street. I don't know if you know Hume Street. So at the moment, there's 2 establishments that have late opening hours, a taxi rank and a takeaway. So even opening the establishment having later opening hours will have a negative impact on the whole street, because it means more people at later hours visiting all establishments and therefore causing more noise than there is presently. And if you want to add anything, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, the key thing I would like to add is that regularly I have tenants contact me with complaints about the noise, antisocial behaviour, standing outside, loitering, smoking. At times I've had tenants phone me and I can't hear them on the phone literally because of the noise that's going on in the background. And they've phoned the police have visited the premises, and a lot of them end up leaving our tenancy. Now, the key thing, I mean, Gemma's my wife, but I mean, I have to say, we rent out these properties. I mean, I must say, financially, it's a difficulty for us because it's not a huge money-making exercise. But Gemma in particular just sources tenants, has real concern for the health and well-being, builds up real positive relations with these people. A number of them have had real difficult situations in the past, have not been able to find housing and things like that. Gemma builds up wonderful relations with them, and they are struggling. They struggle with their mental health and well-being. And I must say, I am really concerned that, especially people that are working on a Friday morning, to have the difficulty of not being able to sleep, which is literally the case, not being able to sleep until 2-3 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday night before they go to their working day on a Friday morning, I think is excessive. I mean, I have other concerns about the location of taxi rank and things like that, because for a built-up residential area there to have taxi rank, 2 takeaways, what is going to be the equivalent of a nightclub now, all on one street, I think is making the lives of these residential tenants extremely difficult. And if we were to extend that, as opposed to, I would almost argue it needs revised as it is, but to in some way extend that now is a major issue. And I'm here actually representing 17 of our tenants. A number of the tenants aren't IT literate, I must be honest with you, find it very difficult to put their objections in. But I feel it's important for me to represent them in this because I worry about them. I do worry about them.
I think it's fair to say that the building's also a listed building, so we are unable to put in triple glazing PVC windows. So at the moment it's single glaze sash and case, and we are now looking at a huge financial investment to add in secondary glazing, which will help. But the fact that it's a listed building and there's not much we can do to make it more soundproof for our tenants makes our situation more tricky as well.
To put that into perspective, that there is a sound issue, which is a major issue, but there's also a vibration issue. I mean, the building, as Gemma said, is like 150, 160 years old. There's a vibration through the properties when music's being played. And I feel for the people that own the businesses. Of course, they've got a livelihood to earn, and I completely respect that. But I question whether or not that livelihood should be being earned at 2 a.m. on a Thursday evening, literally underneath and surrounded by residential. No, I genuinely believe it shouldn't be. When objecting to this, I did look at the 5 objectives that are listed from the licensing board, and I went through them, and obviously in the documentation I've sent you, I have itemised those and linked those to those objectives. But I have to say the key one that really that we are most concerned about is health and well-being. I mean, from a very selfish perspective, I lose tenants on a regular basis because of the fact that there's noise, there's antisocial behaviour. I mean, recently we've had our front entrance to the flat just around the corner, which is above these premises, kicked in twice within the last month. The front glass entrance has been kicked in after. Just after closing time, somebody just literally tried to kick in the front door, and obviously these matters have been reported to the police. But to extend that level of anxiety and intimidation to the tenants is something that I really question. And obviously, out with the health and wellbeing concern, you know, that objective, there are a number of others that I have put in writing to you. I mean, I don't want to take up, you know, everybody's time here, but there's a whole list of reasons for why that should be objected to. Yeah.
I just wanted to add a final thing was that I know the premises cannot be at fault for the people visiting their premises, but the reason I chose this building is because I put myself in the shoes of most of our tenants are between 20, 25. So a young girl coming home at night, she comes to the main building, the secure entry, and it's filled with people smoking because obviously they cannot smoke inside the establishment. And it's Scotland, it's raining, it's a very windy street. So we're the shelter in our entranceway. And it's even myself, when I go down, and during the daytime, there's taxi drivers smoking in there, but at nighttime, it's darker. There's people huddled in the doorway. They're smoking. It's not just tobacco, unfortunately. They're sick on the stair. We have to pay a cleaner. We pay for a cleaner to come every 2 weeks, and a lot of the time they're cleaning that vomit off the door. So I think that's our main is for our tenants.
It's not an irregular occurrence for me to have to stand over sickness at the main entrance to our front door. And put that into perspective, and I'm taking prospective tenants to view our properties, and there's physical sickness, rubbish, cigarette ends, marijuana, joint ends, lying on the floor as I go past, and I just think, no, I'm astonished that there's so many residential houses around that area as it is, and now to make that even more impactful is, I'm amazed, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
Members, is there any questions for Paul or Gemma? Moore?
I have a question for our environmental unit, please.
Yes, of course.
I'm just wondering how many reports they've had of problems in this area over the last year.
Thank you, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Moore. We have had no complaints in relation to amplified music or vibration in the last year. That, however, isn't surprising given lockdown. The last complaint we received in relation to this property was in 2009, when it was being operated as a ash bar, and we've had no complaints in relation to amplified music since then. Obviously, environmental health don't have a remit for noise generated by antisocial behaviour or vandalism.
Thank you. Can I just ask Mr. and Mrs. Bertoletto why they haven't complained to the environmental health unit about the noise?
Yes, I mean, I must say that I've tried to phone Angus Council on numerous occasions to lodge complaints, which I have, and which a number of my tenants have. Now, whether or not they've managed to go to the correct departments, I'm not entirely sure. But basically, what I've ended up being advised to do and did was I've directed them to the police, and then the police have been notified. So there have been numerous complaints about the noise, the antisocial behaviour. Now, whether or not they've gone through to environmental health, or whether or not you want me to now direct future complaints or issues to environmental health, I'm more than happy to do that. But I have found it quite difficult when phoning Angus Council to be directed to the person or for them to lodge. And basically the advice that I've been given has been you have to contact the local police if there's an issue with that. And tenants have, and the local police have been out on numerous occasions.
Thank you. I notice Mrs. Kimmett is wishing to speak. Convener.
Yes, I've just noticed that. Mrs. Kimmett?
Yes, Convener, there is a note on the licensing record that there was a complaint in relation to noise in February 2020, and the licensing standards officer at the time did issue a warning letter in relation to that. And at the time there were complaints recorded that had been reported to the police rather than the council as well, but the one that we have is recorded in February 2020, and Police Scotland may be able to comment on other matters that were reported to them.
Yes, just thank you, Mrs. Kimmett. Just before I ask Councillor Whiteside to speak, I'm going to ask Scotland. Would you like to make a comment? I know you've no objections on the application, but I'd like to hear what you've been called out for. please.
Yeah, morning, convener, board members. We have had 10 calls in the last 3 years in relation, every single one's been in relation to loud music or karaoke. Every time the police have went round, it's never been deemed excessive, but they haven't been in the properties above. They've only been outside and they've went in. So obviously they don't know what the people above are hearing. And from their point of view, they don't think the music was excessive. We've had no reports in the last 3 years of any other kind of antisocial behaviour. One drunk male in 2018 that we don't even know we could attribute to the premise. And obviously in the last year, we've really had nothing given the circumstances.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks. I was going to ask for the police's opinion, but I was also curious about the discrepancy between the applicant's evidence and Mr. and Mrs. Bertolotti in regards to their objection. It looks like their objection maybe came late on. Was there anything that changed their mind? They seem to have had a disagreement about the burst pipe, and has that led to the objection, or is there any other reason why the evidence is so different?
No, I think what I've just learned here is that we've obviously gone down the wrong route by asking our tenants to contact the police or the council themselves. So I think that's one step we'll definitely change. We'll maybe make the complaints from us, not from our tenants. But also, I think you try to be neighbourly and you try to take it on yourself. So when we hired the cleaners, when there's vomit outside, we said, right, can you now start cleaning the outside? So we've kind of tried to take it on our own hands and just fix it as we're going along. So I think we've learned a lesson here that we need to put in more evidence. I have been myself down to speak to people smoking, and I've said, if you're not going to be willing to move, I'm going to start taking pictures of yourselves in our entryway and of the taxi license numbers, and people either coming and going from the I don't know what it's called now, Rugbug Bennies, to prove and sense, but I'm yet to do that one.
Councillor Weiss, I'm not sure if you're making reference to the recent leak of water, but that has nothing to do with the objection here. The objection that I received, in fact, I never actually got notification of this proposal at all. The only reason I actually found out about it was because one of my tenants actually forwarded the documentation. So as soon as I got that documentation, I did then raise my concerns with it, raised it with an individual at the council who didn't respond to me, tried to phone a number that was given, but recently just found out that actually that individual has left. So I've received an apology for the fact that there was a delay in a response to my documentation to that lady, but which I fully accept. I totally understand that, but please don't misunderstand the fact that there's been a small issue with leaks to impact upon why we are choosing to object to this. Absolutely not. The objection to this is absolutely to do with the health and well-being of the tenants above the property.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Comments?
Are we able to reply to any of these comments?
Yes, of course. I'm just going to ask you about members. Just let Councillor King speak first. Alec, you're on mute.
I prefer to wait to hear what the applicant has to say first.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Okay, the applicant can now come back if he wishes to.
Yeah, so as I said in my letter, we were quite happy to drop the application for the Thursday after speaking to Jim and Paul. I was more than happy after discussing that with them that it would make sense to drop the Thursday application. Like I said, when I had made the application originally, we hadn't had a chat with them. I hadn't actually met them in person at that point. So once I understood their reasoning for the objection, I am more than happy to drop that Thursday. With regards to everything else, as they're saying, most of the issues are coming from the taxi rank and they're coming from other venues. The taxi rank's right outside our doors, so we obviously, if people leave other venues that come outside our doors, it looks bad on us if people are, like they said, vomiting outside or making noise outside, dropping litter outside. But 9 times out of 10, it's dealt with by my door staff before it ever gets to the point of having to phone the police. We had an objection again, an issue with noise in February last year. which the police came to attend, and I actually spoke to environmental health about that. It was Kathy Keenan at the time we spoke to. She came in for our annual check on something else at the time, and we discussed it. We put meter readings in place, we put noise meters in place to discuss to sort all the noise issues at the time. And since then, there was no other issues. But like I said, most of the issues that are coming are obviously from outside the premises rather than inside the premises. And we have the CCTV available to show that they're not coming from our premises. We make sure if anything's dealt with by us. If anything happens, it's from our customers, we always deal with it before it gets to the point of affecting the neighbours or anything else.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, just before we go to comments, is there any further questions you would like to ask the applicant? No questions. Okay, comments, Councillor King?
Yes, Convener, I've listened very carefully to what the applicant and the objectors have had to say. And considering that these are premises in a busy town centre area, it's reasonable to expect there is some noise from the environment which would affect the flats. But it's not reasonable for it to go on into the wee small hours of the morning. Our licensing policy was prepared with this sort of problem in mind. And that's why we close premises at 12 o'clock midnight through the week, and we allow Friday and Saturday to 1 o'clock. I'm afraid that the applicant has not made, in my mind, sufficient indications as to why these premises should have extended hours. I note that he's already voluntarily said that he will forego the extra 2 hours on Thursdays. But I still think the extra hour on Fridays and Saturdays is an hour too much. And I think we should restrict ourselves to permitting these premises to operate within policy. We're beginning to see the trends of later and later drinking, with later and later problems involving more and more work for the police. I do think we have to draw a line in the sand somewhere, and I think this is one of the ones where we should do it and permit policy hours, but no more.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I am in agreement with Councillor King. I believe that we should be applying core hours both at the start and at the end of the day. I believe we should be applying the children's model conditions and not allowing an extension, because I don't think that that is beneficial, and therefore I will move our standard hours and conditions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Moore. Yes, I agree with you both. I think we've heard Gemma and Paul. We've heard from the police as well, and I think also that, like you've said, Councillor Moore, we should be sticking on this occasion, certainly as we deal with everyone on its own application, but we should be sticking to our core policy hours here. Mrs. Kimmett, can you just remind the members, please, what they are? I think Councillor King's alluded to it already, but just so we know.
Yes, so there are different aspects to what the applicant has proposed, which are out with policy. So in relation to all the days, they've asked for a 10 AM start. Your policy hour would have you start at 11. So there's that aspect to it. In relation to Thursday, nation hour is 12, and they have asked for 2. And then on a Sunday, the policy hour would be midnight, and they've asked for 1. And then on a Friday and Saturday, the policy hour would be 1 AM, and they've asked for 2. So in relation to a Thursday, it's out with policy by 2 hours in terms of the termination, 1 hour on the start time, it's 1 hour out with the policy. So there are different aspects to it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, then, based on what Mrs. Kimmett has said, what Councillor Moore has moved. Councillor Whiteside, sorry.
Sorry, can I just have a quick question to the applicant? The 10 AM amendment, because I do notice that the licensing board's approved this for other premises quite recently, and I was just wanting to know how important that was to the application. the business model.
As I said in my letter, the 10 a.m. wasn't essential. 11 o'clock would have been sufficient for what we were looking for the weekends. I said we made an application. Obviously, when making an application, we tried to cover all aspects moving forward. Times are hard enough without having to do another application further down the line for other things. So we covered all aspects by putting the 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. If it's within the board's policy, we'd be happy to work around that. As with everything else, as we said from the get-go, they were not trying to be awkward or trying to be out with policy. We're just trying to work to make it feasible to stay open. I understand we've lost 18 months of trade like everybody else, but we have shut Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday because it's not feasible to even open at the minute. The extra hour on a Friday, Saturday would have been a massive help. Again, we do everything we can to help with the neighbours. We police the taxi rank for the council. We cover with the police. We help the police on a number of matters. We've done everything we possibly can to stick in with the rules. The Thursday night, again, we put the 2 o'clock application in because we were putting an application in. It wasn't that we were desperately needing it. We were trying to cover all aspects moving forward because really we can't afford to be putting another application in further down the line. As most of you can understand, it's pretty hard as it is. So we tried to cover all aspects with one application. So the 10 o'clock isn't that essential. I would work till 11 o'clock. It was better for the board. Again, Thursday night, we would happy to stick in hours as it is. Same with Sunday night. I would even lose a Sunday night if we could try and work on a Friday, Saturday. But I don't know what else we can really do to cover the fact that we've put everything in place for this. If it's not enough, then we'll make another application further down the line and look at what we've done wrong.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, then based on what Mrs. Kimmett, you just keep me correct here, I'm going to move that we stick to the board's policy for the core hours. So that would be Monday to Wednesday on the application. It would be 11 a.m. to midnight. Is that correct, Mrs. Kimmett?
Yes, that's correct.
And Thursday to Saturday would be 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. Is that correct?
Thursday would be 11 a.m. to 12 to midnight.
We already have a 1 o'clock licence, so that's already in place for 1 a.m. on a Thursday.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. So Thursday to Saturday then, Mrs. Kimmett, would be 11 a.m. to...
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
And Sunday would be 11 a.m. to midnight, would that be correct?
Midnight, that's correct.
Okay, members, on that basis, you've got the other things in front of you. I'm going to move that we stick to these hours. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
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 Okay, thank you very much. And we'll maybe see you back again another time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the children's conditions convener.
Yes, and the children's conditions, they're in the variation anyway.
Yes, convener, because they had requested for 10 p.m. access for the children's conditions, so it may just be to cover that the normal children's conditions would apply, and the access would be to 9 p.m.
9 p.m. Yes, that's
so it's 9. So we're keeping our kids till 9 p.m. not till 10. That's where we're standing. Just out of curiosity, what grounds is the other 2 premises in Angus that's been granted a 2 o'clock licence in a residential area? We spoke to the applications on that, and our application is very much the same as theirs. I don't understand. Not that I don't want to make an argument over it. I'm just curious on what the difference is between Kirriemuir Town Centre or Montrose Town Centre, and what grounds the
members make the decisions based on the applications in front of them, what any objectors have to say, what the police have to say, and every application is dealt with on its own merit.
Yeah, I get that, but also the other applications had police objections, and I never. Again, like I said, we'll deal with it. We'll put a legal application again, this time with a lawyer, to try and work around that. But it's just the Friday, Saturday, I just don't understand where we're at with it. But like I said, it's not something we can discuss just now. We'll make another application and we'll discuss it at a later date. Thank you all for your time on that.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members. Agenda item 4D is Liddell's, Gravesend in Arbroath.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. Can I just depart? Is that okay for me just to go now?
Yes,
yeah,
of course.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Can I just ask, just before I go, I did have difficulty finding out about this. I wonder if it's possible, if there's an application on this, if I could be contacted, because it was only actually really quite late I actually found out about this application, even though obviously my wife and I own the properties above. So is there a system whereby I can be notified about that, or about any future application?
Mr. Bertolotto, it might be that we can have a conversation about that out with the meeting. Certain people
Please.
require to be notified in terms of the legislation, but they are also advertised publicly on a website, so I can give you a link to where that will be advertised.
If you could do that, that'd be perfect, and I'll check that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time,
You're
guys.
welcome.
Much appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Convener, before you proceed, I
Yes,
did say when we've had the ones in Kirriemuir that they would come back and bite us on the bottom. Now they're starting to come back and biting us.
That's noted, Councillor King. Thank you. Okay, can we have then the applicant for, or the representative for Liddell's, Gravesend and Arbroath? In fact, the next three are Liddell's, Arbroath,
Yes.
Brecon and Forfar. but
Convener, it's the agent Andrew Hunter, and there's Tracy Broomfield from Liddell's also in attendance, but she doesn't wish to speak.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Hunter, good morning. Nice to see you again.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, fine.
Thank you, Convener. If you're quite happy for me to do so, I'll make effectively a general submission about what these little applications are about, and that might short circuit the three of them. The background to all three members is that all three premises are undergoing or have undergone effectively an internal refreshment called Get Fresh 2021. It's a refurbishment of all stores, so it's the whole store. It's not, although this application is clearly about the off-sales provision, it's the whole store that has been revised in terms of its display cabinets, its display shelving, and the net effect of it, as well as putting in the bottle deposit scheme for next year, is that the store is able to provide more products from a wider range. So whereas most Lidl stores, because of their different sizes, will be limited in their stock ranges, the refreshment of the store allows the full range of all products to be applied, and of course that includes a full range of alcohol they have in their largest of stores. So in each premises there is a change to the non-seasonal alcohol display, which is the all year round display, and your members may recall from me before that they have a seasonal display which they asked for from 1 December to 2nd January to cope with the wider demand at that time. So in relation to each of the licenses, there is an increase, but in relative terms to the store, they remain within Lidl's broad parameter of 5 to 6%, where of alcohol of alcohol products against all other products. So I can take you through those percentages and the individual ones if required, but essentially each increase results in small percentage increases, and I'd given to your honours officers snapshots of the plans if you needed to see them, to let you see what the customer will see, and you'll see that the alcohol remains in the same place, in the sense that it's at the furthest point from any, and it's a small increase on one side of an aisle, which is the net effect of the change. So those are the applications before you. I can go into the greater detail of the percentages and the numbers if I need to, but or alternatively, if you've got any particular questions about what's proposed, I'm more than happy to answer them. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Hunter?
Yes, Convener, thank you. Mr. Hunter, you're extending the alcohol display by quite a bit in each of the three stores. Can you tell me, therefore, why do you still need the freestanding display units, which you have in each of the three stores? I'm a regular shopper in Lidl's in Arbroath, and I often find it's very difficult to push a trolley past these when there's congestion in the store. The aisle widths are designed so that customers can have free traffic, but these freestanding units, which are only for alcohol, nothing else, do tend to make access up and down that aisle quite difficult, especially if you're trying to get quickly to your shopping up to the self-service tills.
Mr. Hunter?
Well, in terms of why they're there, is that they're used specifically to highlight a particular product, whether that would be a product that's new to the store, a product for the week, a product that's on a special offer for some variety of reasons, and they feature in I think pretty much all Lidl stores across Scotland, and certainly we would like them to be maintained in these premises. As I can't speak specifically about the Arborough store, and obviously your own experience, and Mrs. Broomfield is on the call and we'll hear what you say, and if she wants to add anything, then I'm sure she will. But certainly it's a feature of all stores. Other than saying that the applicant's licensing officer is hearing what you're saying, there's not really a lot I can add other than that we would like them to continue, because certainly our experience is that customers like them. But beyond that, clearly you've had a difficulty with them, but I don't understand that to be the broad feedback that Lidl have had, and they are an operator that does listen to their customers. So if they had that general feedback across all stores, then they wouldn't exist anymore.
I mean, I'm very interested to say that you say that you put these in for special promotions on alcohol, because you don't have them anywhere else in your store for special promotions on food or anything else. I mean, it seems to be a little bit of overkill when you're looking for so much extension in your shelf space. I'm quite sure you could do without them.
Well, in terms of any instructions to remove them, they would have to come from Mrs. Broomfield, who's on the call. I don't agree, however, that the increases are significant. I think if you were to take Lidl as an operator and versus them against, if you like, the big four supermarkets, you would find that whereas we have between 5 and 6% of alcohol display, your Tesco's, Sainsbury's and Morrison's of this world will be sitting at 15% of their overall store. And you may, if you ever go into those stores, will see that they have large aisles of soft drinks that then get swept away at other times of the year, and their increase is far more significant. I mean, kind of always reluctant to mention other operators in an application, but the reality is that Lidl are not, in the grand scheme of things, operators that put out large displays of alcohol, and they routinely increase and decrease. Of course, you don't see the decrease applications, but they routinely decrease their capacities as well to suit their trading style at any given time. So, absent any objection in relation to the floor plaques, or the not floor plaques, the tables that are there, other than yourself, I would ask them to be continued in relation to these applications.
I must admit, I find it unfortunate there's no one from planning present in the meeting. I don't know whether building standards can answer it, but I would like to know whether those units were included in the floor plans that were agreed when the building was built.
Yeah, there's nobody from planning, Councillor King, and
No,
I think you're absolutely correct. It would be them that would answer this, I think. But it's something we can ask.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Moore, a question.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, Mr. Hunter. I'm looking at your alcohol display area, and it says the length's 35.76 metres, which I'm trying to work out how that comes in, and a height of 1.8, which is 64.368 or 64.37. Do these two merchandisers, are they included in your alcohol display area, or are you only taking the shelf areas?
No, the alcohol display areas include the tables.
Right. And I'm just intrigued because I've looked at all three plans. And where you have alcohol in the Forfar and Montrose store, is it?
It's a brief
store. You have an operator sitting at checkout on the end who can look up the aisle at the alcohol, whereas with this you've got the automatic machines. I'm just wondering whether there is a security risk there.
In the sense of, I'm sorry, I'm not quite following the security risk in terms of the self-checkouts, is that?
Yeah, in the sense of it's easier when you're doing a self-checkout to pass something into your bag rather than when you're standing with a human there doing it.
I don't believe so. If you bear with me a second, again, if Mrs. Broomfield wants to comment on the supervision of self-checkouts, then of course you can come in, but certainly the areas are covered by CT. Oh, sorry, she's coming in.
Yes,
Andrew.
Mrs. I don't think this is really relevant to the application, to be honest, but Mrs. Broomfield, you can answer that if you wish.
Well, you generally do have an attendant of scanning checkouts. You know, because you will always have a flow of customers. So so much like you would have a cashier sitting on a till, which is kind of the main till that looks up the alcohol aisle. It is in the same effect. I'm just kind of looking at the layout plan just now for our broth, and where you have the self scanning checkouts, we do have an attendant station there.
Right.
For any,
Okay.
and I think that's the same for other supermarkets as well, because you know, if you're kind of scanning an alcohol item, an attendant does have to come and, address the Think 25 side of things and, authorise that sale through. So there is an attendant.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any
Okay.
other questions? Comments? No, okay.
Oh yes, sorry, I didn't
see your hand.
Yes, I was waiting till comments on it. I actually agree with Councillor King. The situation, I don't think it works with the alcohol right beside the checkouts. Your other major competitor, Aldi, doesn't do that. They've got them tucked up right at the far end, and they keep further alcohol actually behind them under lock and key. So I must confess, I do agree with the Councillor King. The comments made that it's for one-off. You have a one-off every week with your alcohol that sits in Arbroath in the shelves, and it does cause congestion. And it does cause congestion because it's so close to the people that are coming in for 2 or 3 messages and can't get back out again. So I don't think we're getting the full story here today. And as back to what Councillor King says, I pity the planning aren't here, and it's a pity you don't follow the Aldi model rather than your own.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunno.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think these the standalone stands that sell the drink, I think they're actually paid by promotions from other companies, and it's probably a standard store thing they have to do throughout the whole of UK. And I don't think they actually have any they don't have any say in what's coming into their stores. I think it's a promotion that's probably done by head office, and they have to take these stands whether they want them as obstacles or not. Is that right, Andrew?
I confess I don't know. I don't know the answer to that comment. I would observe just, sorry, Tracy, you're on mute if you were trying to answer it.
No, we don't get paid by manufacturers to highlight alcohol in what we call our square tables. It's generally our wine of the week offers. So every week we have wine of the week that comes in, and it's really just when the volumes will be slightly more. So therefore, rather than trying to, because our alcohol display areas, we don't market in the way of, I know Andrew's saying we don't tend to like to speak about other retailers, whereas Tesco's and Asda's have a much larger alcohol display area for their stores, but we don't. Therefore, that means, when we do have a product that's on promotion, and we will have a higher sell-through rate of that. So rather than putting more pressure on the staff to be continually perhaps restocking an area throughout the day, what these square tables allow is any kind of line of alcohol that we do have in promotion, that they're marketed there, and it's just easier for the customer. We generally don't have, I take fully on board what Councillor King is saying about if he feels it is a bit congested, and I can absolutely take that back to the store and ask them if they can perhaps maybe relocate it a wee bit further up the alcohol aisle, perhaps then away from the front where they would be moving your trolleys into this self-scanning area. That's absolutely something I can take back and speak to the relevant store manager and area manager for our broth.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fairweather, comment?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Well, like Councillor King, I go into, and I'm quite a big chap. and I must admit I've never had any problem in navigating my way around that particular store in Arbroath, and I've also visited their one in Forfar, and again I have had no issues. But as Mr. Hunter says, if you go into Morrison's or Tesco's, other big stores, and you see the amount of alcohol that they've got on display and freestanders as well, at the end of the day, these supermarkets are there to make money and push their products. So I have no issues with this whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. Councillor King, comment?
It's just to come back on what Tracy was saying. I consider that, you know, sometimes it's the size of the trolleys, and I don't object to the size of the trolleys that are used to restock the shelves, but sometimes a bit of thought in terms of customer circulation from the staff might help, because it's not the first time I've come up and there's been a very large trolley parked on the opposite side of the aisle to these units, which makes it very difficult to navigate round. And of course, Councillor Fairweather, while he's a big chap, is not quite as unable to get round the store as I am, because I need to take a trolley just to keep myself stable, and I've got to navigate a trolley round about the thing, and I'm not the only one that needs to do that. So it's just a matter of possibly staff discipline if we can't get rid of the units.
Okay, no further comments. Okay, then we'll just do one at a time. We've got the 3 applications here, and the first one is the Brechin one. We've got that before us. I'm going to move that we grant that. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
And the next one is the Littles in Brechin. We have that before us as well. I'm going to move that we grant that. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
And the final one is the Queenswell Road one in Forfar. We have that application before us, and I'm going to move that we grant that as well. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you, members, and thank you, Mr. Hunter and Tracy. Good to see you again. You're successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay. Members, the next one is the Arbroath Football Club in Arbroath, and I believe it's a well-known face. Miss McEwen's representing this one.
Yes, good morning, convener. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that's correct. So I appear before you wearing my usual 2 hats when it comes to the football club, both as legal representative and also sit before you as a director of the club as well. So, in simple terms, this is a major variation application to extend the main hospitality lounge, the Caird Suite on the first floor at Gayfield. So it doesn't increase the capacity of that area greatly, but it increases it to 116, and it's the extension also affords us an extended kitchen area and a disabled toilet. So that in a nutshell is the application before you. It's a very important source of revenue for Arbroath, like all clubs throughout the country. And also represents not a significant investment for us. So I think the initial response from building control was that the building warrant hadn't been issued, but I think I put in a written submission, so that was in fact granted on the 14th of May, and I have the paper copy here, which was dated the 25th of June, which gave us authority to press on with the works. I was also asked by Tracy Candy of the Licensing Administration to contact Environmental Health, which we did, and Alison Ray from Environmental Health kindly attended at the club last Thursday and met with our operations manager, Louise Walker. So she gave some very helpful advice in terms of the kitchen fittings, etc. And she's going to come back before the new facility goes live. So I think everything is in order, and I would be happy to answer any questions as always, but I would be moving approval of the application.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McEwen. Any questions for Ms. McEwen? No questions. Okay, comments? Councillor Moore, is this a question?
It's a question, convener.
Okay.
I'm just interested. It's to extend to 116 persons, overall capacity increased to 216 persons. Can I just ask, what's the current capacity? How much is it being extended by?
Okay, Ms McEwen.
She's on mute.
You're on mute.
Involuntarily put on mute. I hadn't appreciated that. So there's 3 lounges at Gayfield. So the other 2 are 50 each, and that capacity remains unchanged. I'll be specific about this, Councillor Mrs. Kimmett can maybe respond, but I think the current capacity of that lounge is either 90 or 95, and it's going up to 116. So I have to say, when I first saw the plans, I queried that with the architect and one of my fellow directors who's principally responsible, because in terms of the expenditure, it's not a great increase in numbers, but it does, given what we've all been through, it just allows for just a much greater sort of set out of customers. And as I say, we're probably badly needing the extended kitchen facility as well, which this will facilitate.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Comments then? Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Convener. Yes, it's obviously needed. I can appreciate that all businesses now need to be getting back to work, getting income in, and we're not talking about a great extension. We are talking about improving facilities, both in the kitchen and with a disabled toilet facility, and I'm quite happy to support this.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Moore. Anyone else? Comments? No, well, like Councillor Moore, I'm just going to move that we support this and grant this application. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, Ms McEwen, thank you very much again.
No, thank you very much indeed, and best wishes to Mrs. Kimmett, and thank you to the assistance she's also given me over the last couple of years.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, the next one is bar 1320, Westport in Arbroath, and it's Mr. Glass is the agent and Mr. Din's the applicant. Mr. Glass, you're no stranger to here either, so you may speak to the application, and as you know, there may be questions from members afterwards. Thank you.
Right, sorry. The technology sometimes defeats me. I'm not of the technological era. This application seeks to extend the existing licence hours for these premises on a Friday and Saturday only by 1 hour. It is out with your policy. There is one objection from Police Scotland, and I do have some comment to make in relation to that. The objection from Police Scotland can be commended for its brevity, but makes reference at the foot of page 1 and the top of page 2 to the meat of the objection. The objection, insofar as it relates to the prevention of public nuisance, simply repeats the terms of the Act in relation to objection, but doesn't essentially state any grounds or detail. Now, your legal advisor may be aware of the case of the Chief Constable of Grampian against Aberdeen Licensing Board under the previous legislation, and I can give her the citation for that. That's 1979 SLT Sheriff Court, page 2. And in that case, the court indicated that the relevant objection from the Chief Constable needed more than and I quote, a simple reiteration of the ground of objection. In other words, you needed some meat to the bone. And I would venture to suggest that that's all the more important when we're dealing with these matters remotely. The technology is amazing, but you don't have your client parked beside you. So it really is a matter of fair notice and the rules of natural justice. It's simply to parrot one of the principles without any detail makes it next to impossible for me to take instruction from my client and prepare an appropriate submission for your honours. So insofar as that particular part of the objection is concerned, I would ask you to reject it. And you may wish to take a view on that at this particular point.
Okay, Mr. Glass, what we'll actually do, we'll ask the police to comment, I think, on their objection if they wish to. Police Scotland?
Good morning. Yes,
Morning.
morning. In relation to the application, we have submitted a letter of objection to the variation in terminal hours from 0100 hours to 0200 hours on a Friday and Saturday. The basis being that any increase in terminal hours can result in an increase in alcohol-related antisocial behaviour calls to the police, and thereby it could breach the licensing objectives, not only of causing a public nuisance, but also, having done research on the area, preventing crime and disorder. The premises are situated in Arbroath Town Centre, and there is a mixture of business and residential properties in the vicinity, and the capacity for Bar 1320 is 40 persons. Angus Board's policy, as we've all been discussing this morning, states that premises where activities are permitted to be carried on as specified in their operating plan comprise public entertainment, and provided that alcohol is sold as ancillary to the entertainment, i.e. there's dancing or facilities, then they may be permitted to open on a Friday and Saturday until 0200 hours. Given that Bar 1320 does not have any dancing facilities on its operating plan, the application breaches the board policy. Further to that, though, on the 20th of May 2021, the board did pass the same variation request for another premise in Angus, but there was an additional condition being that there was no admission after 12:45 AM, and when live or recorded music was being played, the decibel level had to be agreed in advance with the environmental health officers in order that it be at a suitable level. And where the premises are full, more people would remain seated than standing. Police Scotland would request the same conditions to be imposed on Bar 1320 should the board support this variation.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Glass, you want to come back?
Well, I was rather expecting to deal with my objection to the manner in which the objection has been stated, but the cat is now rather out of the bag, isn't it? Let me then just deal with the application. These premises are, as the Chief Constable's representative has indicated, in a mixed residential and commercial area of Arbroath. They'll be known well to you. The premises are well run. Since purchased by the present owner, they've undergone quite substantial refurbishment both in and out. The premises are on the corner of Millgate and Westport in Arbroath. There are no objections from neighbouring owners, either of a commercial or residential nature. The owner of the flats above the premises has been spoken to, and he has no objection. The application, I accept, is against your policy, but as Councillor King has reminded us, there have been a number of a number of exceptions to your policy which have been granted. The purpose of this application, I've said, is only for a Friday and Saturday, and to deal with the condition matters that the Chief Constable's representative spoke to. I'd already discussed these with my client, and my client has no objection. Indeed, it was his idea to promote that we should agree these restrictions. That's to say, no new a customer coming in past 12:45, the decibel level to be agreed, with the local authorities officials, and that there should be no more standing than seating. We have no difficulty with that. Can I say that my client does not wish to inherit other premises problems? This application is to provide additional facility for his existing customers. He already employs independent security consultants on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and he will continue to employ them. They are Viking security and they are appropriately registered and licensed. If your honours are kind enough to grant this application, then a risk assessment will be carried out by Viking security. Now, as regards the purpose of this application, these premises have been closed for 18 months and only now moving back to some sort of normality. Although staff were furloughed where appropriate and appropriate assistance requested, the owner was still incurring monthly expenses of between £1,000 and £2,000 and annual charges over and above that, such as insurance and the like. A modest estimate of what he has required to pay out of his pocket between £20,000 and £30,000. It is significant. Over and above that, during that period, he turned not a penny of profit and lost a profit income he would anticipate of between £40,000 and £50,000. If these premises are to survive and jobs are to be retained, it is important that the premises operate to the maximum ability and that they promote income. Lost ground, ladies and gentlemen, needs to be made up. The pub is well run. I've said we do not seek to attract other people's problems. Unlike other pubs in the area, this pub has no need to run alcohol promotions. They do not sell drink cheaply to attract custom. It is the facility that they provide that attracts custom. There's another issue that prior to lockdown, my clients, along with other publicans, are aware of a change in social habits. Back in my younger days, and I can just about remember them, I probably went out round about 7 or 8 o'clock on a Friday or a Saturday night. I'm not going to disclose when I got home, but nowadays that seems to bumped forward to around about 10 or 11 o'clock. Youngsters tend to stay at home, watch their favourite programme, be it Love Island or whatever, sport on the television. They tend to come out later. So there is a change in social habit that, and these are not the only publicans that I represent that have noticed this. At the moment, if someone wants to enjoy the company of their friends and a drink beyond 1 AM on a Friday or Saturday, they're required to go to a nightclub. Now, that's not an environment that attracts everyone. My client seeks to offer that extra hour to his customers. Remember, the customers that are there prior to 12:45, rather than have them consider a nightclub. Now, on that point, there is a nightclub within 50 to 75 metres of these premises, and that's DeVito's nightclub. So there is already a 2 AM presence within this proximity. So, in summary, what my client seeks to do is deal with this change in social habits, protect and try and rebuild his business from the very unfortunate pandemic, which sadly has not only affected businesses but also claimed lives. These premises are well run. there is security. There will be a curfew for entry. There will be agreement on a decibel limit, and there will be agreement on more people seated than those, I think the phrase we're using now, vertically drinking. So I would move approval of this application. I believe it has merit and I commend it to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Glass. Any questions for Mr. Glass? Councillor Moore.
Yes, Mr. Glass, just one. You said that you had spoken to the owner of the flats above. Is he actually a resident there, or does he let out to others?
He lets out to others, Councillor Moore.
And they would, I mean, I know how the licensing publication is. Would he tell them, or would he just talk to you and then say, well, it's fine by me, or whatever, you know?
Can I clarify, Councillor Moore? He talked to my client, not to me.
Right.
My client, it's Shazad Din, known as Bobby Din. Whether the individual flat owners were spoken to by the landlord, I cannot comment upon. But as proximate proprietors, I think they would have got notification. Sorry, proximate residents would have got notification of the application.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Durno, question for Mr. Glass? Councillor Durno, you're on mute.
Thanks, Mr. Glass, for your explanation of why they want to be open till 2 o'clock. My understanding of the premises in question is that it tends to be more sort of late 40s age group that go to the premises, and it's well known for its lagers and beers and things like that. Has the proprietor did his sums to see would he make much more money in the last hour if that's the kind of clients that's drinking? Are they going to still be buying beer at 1 o'clock in the morning to actually pay for his bar staff? And is it going to be financially viable, that extra hour? That's really what I have in question. Would you do, if he wasn't busy, would you close at 12 o'clock? This is the question I'd like to ask. I mean, do they really need to be open till 2 o'clock in the morning? As you say, everybody goes, the youngsters all go to the nightclubs. You know, they're not in the local pubs at that time of night. They're in the nightclubs in private parties. So it's just a question of would he make any more money in that last hour, really?
Well, Councillor, the difficulty in answering that question is he's never tried the extra hour on a Friday and Saturday because he's not allowed to. These are difficult times, Your Honours. These premises, and a lot of premises, have lost significant amounts of money. They've had to borrow money to basically stay alive. They've got to repay that money. They've got to try everything. My client, bearing in mind the additional security costs that he will require to pay, the additional staff costs he will require to pay, believes that this will work. If it doesn't, then he's made a mistake. But he doesn't approach this lightly. He's investing money to get this extra hour by the staff and the security costs. He believes that it will work. He believes it's a service that his customers will appreciate. As you've quite correctly pointed out, Councillor, that what attracts people to this bar is it's not just selling Tennent's Lager or what have you. They have guest beers. They have quirky beers. That's what attracts people to this, the service, the individual service that is provided.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Glass? Okay, we'll go to comments then. Councillor Whiteside, thank you.
Yeah, we've just turned down an application for another premises on the basis that it was out with board policy. Well, we've turned down the extended hours. The other application arguably had a better reason for extending the hours. This is a bar. It has a police objection. I can't see why there's any good reason to extend hours to 2 AM in the situation of that bar.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteside. Councillor Fairweather?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I know this premises, and as Mr Glass rightly says, there's a nightclub just about 50 metres along the road. And I've been informed that they have just advertised that they're going to be staying open till 2:30. I did ask that be checked, and seemingly we did grant a licence for 2:30 for that particular club. The fact, the last one, I totally agreed with Councillor King that I felt the density of the amount of premises above it, residential premises above it, was a step too far. On this one, the fact that there's a nightclub there, there are residents, and yes, there was a police objection, but there has been no objections from any tenants. Again, what Mr Glass said, this has been very, very difficult times, and we have granted two previous licences, and that was one of the reasons that we've done this. And Mr Glass has said that they are quite happy with the conditions that we put in, and Police Scotland reiterated, if we do agree this, that those conditions go in again. So I'm going to move to grant this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairweather. Mrs Commit, you've got your hand up. Thank you.
Yes, it's just maybe to come in here with a little bit of advice in relation to the objection itself, and kind of comparing it to the last application that you refused, and that you do need to consider each application on its own merits. You need to look at the objections, and you need to be able to reason out your decision. The police objection doesn't refer to any specific incidents, it refers to general kind of complaints about the area. So you do need to look at the specific reasons why the licensing objectives wouldn't be able to be upheld if you refused the application, or if you granted the application, sorry. The applicant has indicated that they're willing to agree to the conditions. You have granted similar applications like that in the past. So I guess the real question for you is looking at the licensing objectives, and whether, if you grant it with those conditions, whether those would be able to be upheld. And you do need to be able to reason that out with specific, whether that be specific incidents or objections. So in the last application, you had a specific objection from the tenants. In this case, it is an objection from the police, but it doesn't detail specific instances, which might be allowing you to provide that reasoning.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs Commit. Councillor Moore, comment?
Yes, thank you, Convener. Yes, as Mr Glass said, we don't know whether this will cause a problem because the applicant has never traded this hour, we hope. I can fully understand the police's concern. There are residential properties around. However, those residential properties could call for a review if there was a problem. The police have not given us any detail of issues over the last year or so, but then that's probably because the place has been shut for so long. Given that the applicant is prepared to accept the conditions that were detailed out about no entry, the decibel level, and the seating to standing ratio, I would agree with Councillor Fairweather, and I would agree to grant this application.
Very much, Councillor Moore. Councillor King.
Yes, Convener. We have a policy for a reason. We have a policy to ensure, and the annoyance to the other residents is kept at a minimum. That is relaxed at the weekend to 1 o'clock for public houses and 2 o'clock for discos. I'm familiar with these premises. I'm familiar with the disco that's further along the street. And I do know that over the years, I've had a lot of complaints about noise from the disco as people leave at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now what we're doing is we are moving quietly, and as I've said, it's coming back to bite us, to allowing later hours in public houses. We are now hearing that I wasn't aware of, that the disco now has 2:30 in the morning. How long is it going to be before they want the full hour again and want 3 or 4? As I said, we have a policy for a reason. We have a policy for a reason of controlling disorder in the streets and avoiding public nuisance. Let's stop thinking about how we can placate individual owners. Let's stick with our policy and enforce it. I agree with Councillor Whiteside, and if she's moving that we do not grant this, I will second her.
Okay, thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Fairweather, you moved it. Councillor Moore, did you second Councillor Fairweather to grant?
Yes, convener.
Okay, so Councillor King has moved an
No,
amendment.
that's the amendment, Councillor Fairweather, convener. The motion is from Councillor Whiteside not to grant, seconded by myself.
Okay, that's fine then.
I think Councillor Whiteside, we could maybe clarify that with Councillor Whiteside.
Yeah, I'm happy to move that it's declined because it's out with board policy.
That was seconded by Councillor King, Mrs. Anderson.
Was that your intention? Was that the motion? Did you?
Yes.
Have you got any further reasons, Councillor Whiteside, refuse the application?
The fact that it's a bar and not a club, which is out with the policy, and it's likely to cause a public nuisance in a residential area.
Are you quite happy, convener, just to move to the vote?
Yes, if you can just, you'll do your professional usual and let the members know what they're voting for, and what the motion and what the amendment is. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion by Councillor Whiteside, moved by Councillor King, is to refuse the application for bar 1320 Westport Arbroath, and it was for the hours the Friday and Saturday, the 11 o'clock to 2 AM. So refuse that part of the application. I take it the other parts, the Monday to Thursday, 11 to 2400 hours, everyone's happy with that part. And the Sunday, 11 to 2400 hours, everyone will be happy with that part. So it's just the Friday and Saturday, it would be 11 to only 1 AM, that part if it be refused, just to the 2 o'clock part. So it's been refused the application as it's out with the board policy and likely to cause a nuisance to the residential properties nearby. The amendment moved by Councillor Fairweather, seconded by Councillor Moore, is to grant the application as detailed in the papers with the 2 AM terminal Friday and Saturday, subject to the conditions which are that no admission be made to the premises after 12:45 AM, that when live or recorded music is being played, the decibel level is to be agreed in advance by environmental health officers to a satisfactory level, and that when the premises are fully occupied, more persons remain seated than standing. Okay, just hold on till I get that. Right, motion or amendment, convener?
Amendment.
Councillor Moore?
Amendment.
Councillor Boyd?
Motion.
Councillor Brown? Councillor Brown?
Motion.
Councillor Durno? Motion.
Councillor Fairweather,
Amendment.
Councillor King, Councillor King. Oh, I think you're still on mute, Councillor King.
Motion.
Councillor Lumgear
Motion.
and Councillor Whiteside.
Motion.
So that's 6 for the motion and 3 for the amendment. Therefore, the motion is to refuse the 2 AM opening on the Friday and Saturday.
Okay, Mr. Glass, that's you've heard the board's decision. Thank you very much again for your attendance.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, we'll now go to the Giddy Goose, 69 High Street in Forfar, and we have written representations on this one. Who's not here today.
Now exiting.
So
This is a very minor matter of including the garden on the opposite side of the path to the parts already included. I think we should just let this one go.
Yes, I agree, Councillor King. Very sensible. Do we agree? Agree, Grant?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next one is Chilies of Carnoustie, and we've got Mr. McPherson as the agent for this one. Mr. McPherson, you may speak to the application like the other applicants have done, and then there may be questions from members afterwards. Thank you. Take it Mr. McPherson is here. I don't actually see.
He was here, I think, earlier on. We've also got, I think, the applicant here. They were on earlier on on a telephone. Are they still here?
That's Mr. Raj. I think he was here earlier.
Raj.
Mr. Raj.
I think I still see the telephone, so I don't know if Mr. Raj is still here.
Okay. Looks like we've disappeared, Mrs. Anderson, or maybe the technology's let them down a bit.
Mr. Raj is on the telephone. It's actually muted.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, his telephone number's still showing. So, Mr. Raj, if you would unmute, please, so you could speak to your application.
No, technology's playing up here, Mrs. Anderson, I think.
Oh, I think that's unmuted now, convener.
Okay, Mr. Raj, good morning.
Hello, hi there. Hello, good morning. Hello, everyone.
Good morning. You're on to the board meeting now. If you just want to speak to your application, the members have the application in front of them. And if you want to speak to your application, what it is you're looking for, and there may be questions from members afterwards. Thank you.
Of course, sir. Thank you, sir. Much appreciate. I applied for the terrace. So 4 picnic benches sitting on 4 people each, southwest terrace, and 4 tables sitting 2 people each on northeast terrace, outside area, which most of the people are coming. My customer is visitor. They want to see the sea view, and also I sell the ice cream. So that's the reason I'm applying for. So if you are consider me, I'll be very appreciative for this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions from members? No questions. Okay, comments? Councillor King.
Yes, convener. A question of Mrs. Kimmett. There is an amendment to the children's conditions. Is that amendment competent?
It's in terms of the children's conditions. your normal children's conditions wouldn't allow children to be unaccompanied on a premises like this. What we'd say is in the past, with at least 2 premises, you have added a separate condition which says children of a certain age can be accompanied on the premises for the purpose of X. And in this instance, it would be for takeaway food, ice creams. So it would be for the board. It's not in line with how your conditions currently stand, but it has been added in the past and it is for a limited purpose. So you would be able to add that as a separate condition if you were minded to do so.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Based on what Councillor Moore?
Yes, Convener, thank you. I haven't a problem with the operating plan, the outdoor area. I am concerned about the children's conditions, though. I'm not sure that that is something that I could fully support. So I'd appreciate hearing what other members have got to say on that matter.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Whiteside, thank you.
Thanks. Given what Mrs. Kimmett said, I would be happy to support it for the limited purposes that's been applied for. I don't think it's harmful. I think it's a reasonable request.
Support it as is, Councillor Whiteside. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor King?
Yes, Convener, I'm familiar with these premises way back to the time when it was called the Beach Pavilion. From what I can see, providing we amend the children's conditions with the additional condition as requested, allowing children aged 13 to 15 and young persons, etc., for takeaways, food, meals, soft, etc., I think I'm quite happy with this application, subject to that additional condition.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, on that basis then, subject to what you've said, Councillor King, and the conditions that's there in the application, I'm going to move that we grant this. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Your application has been granted. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Okay, members, the next one's the Grey Harlings Hotel in Montrose. And we've got Mr. Watson, the applicant here, and we've got Miss Burrell, the agent from Brodie's. So, Miss Burrell, yes.
Before we start on this one, there seems to be quite some discrepancy in terms of the numbers that would be allowable on the premises. And I would move deferral of this until we get more information from building standards. It appears to me that what they are asking for in terms of 150 persons, they don't have the toilet facilities to accommodate that.
Okay, Councillor King, is that agreed, members? We're going to defer this one to the next board or a future board meeting? Yes, Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Convener. Yes, if we're going to defer this, can we also address the matter of the 6-foot timber fence, which is shown on the plan as a 6-foot timber fence, but we have seen from photographs that there is either a gate in it or there is a gap in it. Now, if the licensing plan says there is a 6-foot timber fence there, then there should be a 6-foot timber fence. And if there is any difference to that, then that needs to be shown on the plan because that could affect the neighbour.
Okay, I think these points are noted, but we have agreed now to defer this. Is that agreed, members?
Convener, if it's been deferred for further information, it might just be useful. I know it's in relation to the building standards comments, but just to clarify exactly what further information is to come back, just so that officers can gather that information and present it clearly next time. So is it just the further information in relation to the capacity?
Yeah, the capacity, and I think Councillor Moore brought up the fence, Mrs. Kimmett.
Yeah, I mean, basically, they are pointing out in page 67, the number of toilets that are required. It says if the applicant wants 150 persons, they need to provide another male WC, another 2 urinals, and another 2 female WCs. Well, that would require at least a building warrant to proceed with. So I want to see that on paper before I start considering anything. Either that or we've got to start looking back to restaurant or public house. So I think it's opportune to defer this for the staff to take further information and clarify the points that have been raised by building standards and the points raised by Councillor Moore.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Watson and Ms. Birrell, you've heard that the board have deferred this for a future meeting of the board for further information. Okay.
Are we able to comment on that at all at the moment, or is that to be saved until the...
The officers come back to us, then you'll get certainly plenty of opportunity at a future meeting.
We did have confirmation from Mr. Mike Miller of Building Standards that what we'd supplied was sufficient, so we'll take that discussion offline and have a chat for the deferred meeting.
If you can do that, that would be absolutely excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, and the final one on this agenda item, members, is the Brown Horse Hotel in Brechin. Now, unfortunately, the applicant has not been able to come today. He has another appointment, so we'll just go to this application. Sorry, my apologies, my screen's a bit slow. Okay, members, I don't know who we can ask questions to be honest, on this one, because nobody here. Councillor
I want
King.
to ask a question of you, convener. I know you can't give me the answer because there's nobody from planning here. Is converting a third of the car park into a beer garden a permitted development? Or is it something that should go through planning?
Oh, I don't know that, Councillor King.
Correct. Let's defer this one and get that information. Perhaps
Okay.
we should have members of the planning staff available when there are things like this, because that's the second time we've had to ask today matters which would be planning based.
That's a good point. So, Mrs. Kimmett, did you get the note of that as well? That what Councillor King's asking for. I'm going to move that we defer this one.
Yes,
for the
okay.
information
Yeah,
that
I've
Councillor
noted
King.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Moore.
Yes, I believe they're both sui generis.
Oh, well. Okay, so that's deferred. Move to defer this as well. Agreed. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, members. Just agenda item number 5, applications for occasional licenses. Now, the first two at this point in time, the Portcullis and the Queen Street Tavern, have been withdrawn. But the third one, apologies, my screen is just not playing the game. Jonathan Calder, 24 Bigging. Mr. Calder, are you on the meeting?
I am, yes.
You want to speak to your application, and then there may be questions from members afterwards?
Yeah, not a problem. So this is an extension on our previous occasional licenses that we've had. It's just to do with, we deliver cocktails during kind of lockdown and that everything that happened, that we came up with the idea of. We started it off initially as we got the licenses to shake cocktails actually at people's doors, obviously because nobody was allowed in houses or to go out. And then from this we developed the shake your own cocktails at home, where we kind of now just bottle everything up for them, and then we make them in the premises, and then we deliver them out to their houses. So it's all kind of pre-made and that for them.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Calder? Councillor King, thank you.
Yes, convener. Can I ask Mr. Watson why he has not applied for a variation rather than applying for an occasional license?
Okay, Mr. Calder.
I spoke to Daniel at the council kind of about this, and he advised us to kind of go ahead with this, because the reason we done this to start with was because we didn't know if it was going to work or not, whether it was going to be profitable or be worth our while kind of doing it. So when we kind of spoke to Daniel about it, the plan he gave us to do was to apply for the occasional licenses to make sure that it was working and it was carrying on to work. And then eventually the plan is, now that we know that it is kind of working, that is we want to kind of apply for a premises license for this, which is kind of our next step to do.
Does that satisfy you, Councillor King?
Yes, I think that this is, again, using occasional licenses for a purpose that were not intended for. This really should be covered by a variation in the licence. And if we were going to grant this, I would only grant it till the next board, on the understanding that Mr. Watson will apply for a variation in his licence to cover this permanently.
Convener, just to clarify, Mr. Calder doesn't have a premises licence at the moment, so it would be a full premises licence application required rather than a variation, but it's the same principle.
Yeah,
that puts him on the same basis as everybody else.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moore, question?
Yes, just to Mr. Calder, you've said that you will apply for a premises licence.
Yeah.
Just to try and put you on the spot, when do you propose to do that? At the end of this occasional licence, or will you be seeking another one?
I think, well, now that when we have spoken to Daniel on that, we kind of put this into place because we didn't know how long or if it was going to work, and it is working. So the plan is now, because obviously we know it's a long kind of process to get the premises licence kind of put in place and that as well. And now's the time that I was going to obviously have this meeting today, that I'm going to be getting in touch with Daniel straight away, so then we can then start putting motions in way to get the premises licence sorted.
Can we just point out, convener, that Daniel has moved within the council and now works for the planning service. So Daniel is not available to give
Mrs.
advice.
Corletto now. It's a Mrs. Nikki Corletto now. She's actually on the meeting today.
Okay.
She's licensing standard officer. So if you get in touch with Mrs. Corletto, I'm sure she'll keep you right. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Comments? Okay, hopefully the screen will behave itself.
Yes, convener. Just mucking about the technology to get back online. I've got sympathy with this one, but not so much sympathy that I'm going to give it carte blanche. I think we give an extension of occasionals until probably the next board meeting. If there is a requirement to further extend that to allow things to go forward, then we can consider that at the next board meeting. But certainly I wouldn't give an occasional extension any further than the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor King. Mrs. Kimmett?
Convener, just to clarify, in relation to this application, the applicant is only putting an application up until the 10th of September, so any future application is likely to be considered by the next board anyway. So, but we can note that as well.
Okay. Okay then. Anyone else? Comments? No. Okay. We have the application in front of us. I'm going to move that we grant it, but obviously there's comments from Mrs. Kimmett there, with the additional conditions as detailed in Appendix 2 of this report, and the exception of conditions 1, 2, 7, 11, 12 and 13. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Calder, your application has been granted. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Okay, the next one, the Thrums, has also been withdrawn, members. And the one after that.
Convener, it's just to clarify in relation to the Thrums, they have now applied for a major variation. That's why it's not being considered at this board. So because they've applied for the major variation, it can now, in terms of the policy, be dealt with under delegated authority. But it was just to provide the board with that assurance that they have applied for the variation as well. Okay,
thank you very much, Mrs. Kimmett. Thank you. Okay, members, the next one is the Stag Hotel in Forfar, and again we have written representations for this one. Any questions to the licensing staff? Councillor King?
Yes, once again, convener, I feel now that we're back in more or less normal business, that these matters should be dealt with by major variations or variations to the licence, not by occasionals. Not opposed to granting it for the dates that are requested, but certainly following that, I would be looking for an application for a variation of the licence, and I would not be prepared to grant further occasionals.
Okay, thank you, Councillor King. Mrs. Kimmett, any update on this one? Are they intending putting in for a major variation?
They have indicated that they would be intending to apply for it. I think the hesitation is that it's coming up to the end of the year, and they won't be using the outdoor area as much. But the officers will be in touch with them to encourage that application in line with the policy, as well as they have indicated that long term they will be using the outdoor space.
Okay, and on that basis then, members, I'm going to move again with the mandatory and local conditions, but I'm going to move that we grant this. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next one is the Kinloch Arms in Carnoustie. Anyone here from the Kinloch Arms?
Convener, we did receive an email from the applicant this morning, just prior to the meeting, and they indicated that they may wish to withdraw the applications, but then subsequent emails indicated that there was maybe a bit of confusion over whether they wanted to withdraw it. So my advice to the board would be to consider these applications, since we're not clear what the intention is with it. I don't think anyone's here from the premises to speak to it, but my advice would be to consider the application since we're not sure, and if they will try and clarify whether they intend to use these after. But apologies, that email only came in this morning, so we've tried to make sense of it so far, but it looks like they may wish to still use an occasional licence, but it may be in a different area. But we've got the applications in front of us now, so I would propose that you would look to deal with these.
Consider this one. Okay, thank you. Councillor, thank you, Mrs. Kimmett. Councillor King?
Yeah, once again, the same sort of thing. The use of occasionals where they should be putting in a variation. Again, I would not object to granting what they have asked for, but that would be the last. They would be required to put in a variation if they wanted to continue. Now, as in the case of the last one, they don't want to use it over the winter, then they can delay putting in their variation. But if they want to continue over the winter, then they better get their variation like post haste.
Yeah, I agree, Councillor King. Councillor Moore?
Yes, thank you, Convener. I'm not opposed to granting the occasionals, but I would say up to the next board meeting, and then the applicant can attend the next board meeting to tell us what their proposals are for moving forward.
That's fair enough. That's absolutely fine. Any other comments?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Councillor Boyd?
Yes, I can't comment as well. Yes, I am disappointed to see this confusion put in at the last moment, and I know we said we should be looking at it, but I just think we shouldn't be. But because of the confusion sent by an applicant this premise has been a problem for quite some time under lockdown, and they were using temporary licenses then. So I think this is could well be the problem, but I will go with the comments made by my fellow councillors, and but we must make sure, and I think in the strongest terms, we can't be getting emails on the day of the application and people changing their minds. It's not making us look out to be a very professional outlet at all. Yeah, as I'm saying, let's leave it till the next one. But I watch with interest to see what they're wanting to do with their variations. Thank you very much.
I totally agree with you, Councillor Boyd. It's totally unacceptable to be having emails before and during the meeting and expecting our staff to deal with that. It's not acceptable. Okay, members, again, we've got the application in front of us, and subject to the usual the additional conditions detailed in Appendix 2, I'm going to move that we grant. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
I move that we only grant it as far as the next board, Convener.
Yeah, so is that just granted to the 16th of September? Is that correct?
Yes.
In terms of the applications, the application for an occasional licence, they have dates specified on them. So in terms of this one, there is one being applied for on the 16th. So I guess it would depend on whether you wish to grant that, or whether I think the board date is the 16th. Is that correct?
Yes, the board date's the 16th, and the dates requested have been the 19th of August to the 1st of September for one application, the 2nd of September to the 15th of September, and then they've asked for the 16th to the 29th September. So is the board just wishing to grant the first two, or the one the 16th to the 29th?
Councillor King?
Convener, I would grant what's been asked for to avoid confusion, but with the requirement that they submit a full variation.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Councillor Durno?
I agree with that because it might be a wedding, you know, that they need the license for, so we wouldn't want them not to get the license.
Yeah. Okay, then we've granted it.
Can I take some legal advices on that? I don't agree with that at all. This is back to what we were saying before. If they're totally disorganised and keep on sending us these things at this point in time, I can't remember if it was Councillor Moore. I tend to more grant the first two because that ties in to the thing. They've made no representation today. They've sent emails in during the middle of the meeting. Personally, I would like to think we only grant the first two. And as a local member, I would like to think I would get the backing of others because that's what the local member wants. And but I don't know if I could get. I don't know if we need to go to a seconder on that. Maybe take some legal advices on that.
Okay, Mrs. Kimmett, thank you.
Convener, I think in terms of the one that starts on the 16th, it's probably not terribly fair to an applicant to not know whether that's going ahead until whenever this meeting's finished on the 16th, just in terms of the application itself. You can hold it till the 16th, but what I would say is these are temporary licenses. It's only ever going to run up to the 29th. So if they apply for further ones, that will come to your board on the 16th. So for a matter of weeks, I mean, my advice would be that you would, if you're going to grant the first two, you grant the third one, and then if they apply for any more, then you would look at that on the 16th.
Does that satisfy you, Councillor Boyd?
Yeah, that seems to be taking the legal advices. It looks like our hands are tied, but we have to keep by the rules. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor King.
I was just going to say that I was going to support the local member, but the local member is now supporting me, so I will just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I'd just like to make the comment that reading the papers, the applicants advised in April 2021 that their plans for submitting a major variation were nearing completion, but we've not got the application 3 months later. So I am a little concerned about this. Okay, grant the 3, but I think that we need to be seeing some movement on that major variation very promptly.
And I think that's exactly Councillor Boyd's and Councillor King's point that Mrs. Kimmett's already said that if we grant those 3 today, then any future ones would have to come before us for consideration anyway, and we can deal with it at that time.
And therefore, sorry for interrupting, Craig. Therefore, if people can't, if the officers can make the strenuous things back to them, they're quite right. What Councillor Moore is saying. This has been going on since April. So I really think it should be said this is not the way to treat the board, and therefore get things sorted out as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Mrs. Kimmett, remind me, did I move to grant this already before we went into a further discussion?
I think you did, yes.
Okay, that's fine then. Okay, then that's fine. Then we'll just go straight to the Market Arms in Montrose. And we've got written representations again from Mrs. Hood. Councillor King.
Yes, I mean, it's just a case, it's exactly the same as the others, that we grant this at this time, but we demand that we get a variation. And I think in all of these ones, we should indicate that it's highly unlikely that the board would be willing to grant further occasionals unless they'd presented a major variation. We might be prepared to consider an occasional to bridge the gap till a variation could be brought in, but that's a legal matter that I'll leave to Mrs. Kimmett and the Licensing Standards Officer. But it's just a matter that we should be making it very, very clear that the laxity that was allowed over the period of COVID in terms of occasionals, if they're going to do this on a regular basis, it's a major variation that they should be putting in.
Yes, I totally agree, Councillor King. So on that basis, I'm going to move again with the conditions.
Convener, sorry, there is just one detail to highlight with this one. They do have roads permission. It's on a pavement area, and the roads permission's only been granted up to 8 p.m. The application's actually for 9 p.m. So at the moment they've been running an occasional licence which runs to 9 p.m. but they've only got permission to use the road space until 8. So I mean they are completely separate matters, but it's just to bring that inconsistency to your attention as well, but they are separate matters.
In that case, convener, should we restrict our licence to that granted by the roads consent, i.e. 8 p.m?
Acceptable?
That would be acceptable, yes.
Okay, then on that basis, what Councillor King's just said, the licence to 8 p.m, I'm going to move that we grant it. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Now, okay, members, agenda item number 6 is the occasional licences we're asked to note granted under delegated authority. Do we note these?
Noted.
Yes.
Okay, number 7, premises licence, minor variations under delegated approval. Do we note these?
Noted. Agreed.
Thank you. Number 8, personal licences under delegated approvals. Do we note these?
Noted. Agreed.
And number 9, the final agenda item is confirmation of provisional premises licences. Do we note these?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. And just before I ask Mr. Phillips to stop the recording, I omitted at the start to welcome Mrs. Nikki Corletto to the meeting at the start of today. This is our first full board meeting. I had the privilege to meet Mrs. Corletto, albeit virtually. So welcome, Nikki, and it will be good, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Fotheringham.
Okay, John, can we stop the recording, please?